All right, guys. Our next guest is known for his excellent work at ESPN, just smashing out can't miss interview after can't miss interview at an astonishing rate, but also notably for being Brad Pitt's body double in Fight Club and also face double. A real slice of nice in the world of MMA media. Brett the Threat Okamoto, welcome back to Submission Radio, man. It's good to see your handsome mug again. How have you been?
I've been good, guys. I've been good. Yeah, it's been too long. I can't even remember the last time we did one of these. So when I got the invite, I was excited. Thanks for having me.
Nah, the pleasure is all ours, Brett. And also, we need to bring some sunshine into 2021 because I was just thinking about it before. You had Khabib retiring, Conor McGregor lost, Khamzat Chimaev. Who knows what's going to happen with him in the future? And now Israel Adesanya. Not that it's bad to see, Polish power be able to sort of secure that spot in history, but a lot of fans disappointed to see him lose as well this past weekend.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, as much as Conor losing is sad for a lot of people, Dustin winning was very happy for a bunch of others. And it is definitely sad to see Khabib retire, but I almost more associate that with the 2020 thing. I mean, I haven't been one of those people who really thought that Khabib was coming back. So that still to me is a 2020 story, but you're right. The fights have been great. The events have been great. But yeah, I mean, you had Kamaru being sad about smashing Gilbert, his friend's dreams, and Izzy coming up short of the double champ. You're right. You guys got me in a negative mood now. I thought it'd been a pretty good year so far in 2021.
All right, let's wrap on that. Let's end on a negative. No, but now you're here, Brett's here, the sunshine in our lives. I think with Israel, it was exciting to see the limits of what somebody could do. If he won here, all of a sudden Jon Jones at heavyweight kind of opens up, and you're like, dare to dream. Whereas now that's kind of on the back burner. But I want to ask you, what was the biggest surprise for you of how that fight played out? And do you think that in a way we all just kind of underestimated how good Jan had really become? We knew he'd come a long way since that 2-4 record, but maybe we didn't expect that he was that good.
I think that we were becoming more and more aware of how good he is, just because it's almost impossible not to. It was almost like that was kind of the story after the last one when he beat Dominic Reyes in such dominant fashion. We're like, man, we've been sleeping on this guy, So I think it was more a sense of if he was being underrated coming into this one, it's not because any of us didn't think he was good. It's just that we thought Israel is, a generational type talent, and he might still be. It's just, he was unsuccessful in his first move up to 205. I think the thing that surprised me the most in the fight was how well Jan did from a kickboxing range. I really thought that there were ways for Jan to win the fight. I just didn't think that he'd have much success when it was sort of fought on the outside as a kickboxing range. You even heard, the broadcasters saying the same thing, that after that first round, it's like, man, Jan's playing a dangerous game. He's playing a kickboxing type fight with a kickboxer. But I even turned to someone next to me in that fourth round, I want to say, and I was like, man, Jan is hitting him with a lot of jabs. And it's like Jan does not look like the fastest guy in the world. And Izzy is a very, very, very deft striker with good defense. And he just popping that jab out and landing it almost at will. So that was to me, that was not shocking that Jan won. I had picked Izzy, full disclosure, but it was not shocking to me that he won. But the fact that he could even kind of hang and in some cases be better than Izzy at times from a distance was definitely surprising.
Love DC, but we saw he made the comment about how to him he still believes Jon Jones is the best 205er out there even after this win. What do you think this sort of win does for Jan? Do you believe that sort of turns the narrative for a lot of people to, right, this guy is the champ of the division, he's here to stay? Or is it still the question marks of, okay, he beat Israel, but it's not Jon Jones, and Jon Jones left without sort of fighting him?
I think it's probably the latter, unfortunately. I think you can have kind of both, which may sound impossible because they're two, completely different thoughts. But I think you can say that, yeah, Jan is the best 205er because Jon Jones is not a 205er anymore. You can say that he is the legitimate champion. With DC, I almost feel like it was slightly different because Jon was still a 205er. He just wasn't eligible to fight sometimes. Like now it just, at least me personally, it feels like Jon is on this other kind of path now. It's almost like, continuing to say that, just one of these guys that have moved in weight, now I'm blanking on a good example, but it's once a guy leaves a weight class, I mean, it's almost like saying that Max Holloway can't be the best featherweight or Alex Volkanovski can't be the best featherweight because Conor, is still kind of looming out there. I mean, I know it's a little bit of a poor comparison because Jon was there for so long, but at least for me personally, guys, I want to see Jan fight Jon. That's a fight that I would very much be interested in. But in terms of, giving Jan his due, I give it to him now. Now that he beat Izzy, and even though I would love to see that fight with Jon Jones, I don't necessarily hold that against Jan and say he's a paper champion, because Jon is not a 205er anymore. I mean, he's putting on weight and he's going to be a heavyweight.
Do you feel like Jan is here to stay as champ? And do you also think that there's a narrative here where if he does remain champion, we see a rematch with him in Israel? Or do you think this is kind of like a one and done thing?
I mean, I wouldn't bet on ever seeing that rematch. It's possible. And the reason it is quite possible is just because you look at what Izzy is going back down to 185 for, and you just wonder how long his interest will be held there if he continues to win. Now, if he loses the title, obviously, then that changes everything, and he'll be at middleweight for, the long term. But if he goes back down, I mean, you're looking at that kind of middleweight tournament in April where you got, Whittaker and Costa and Marvin Vettori and Darren Till. He's already beat 3 of those 4. So if he runs out of challenges pretty quickly, I mean, this is a guy who likes to fight frequently. So any challenges that do emerge at 185, if he is winning, he's going to get through them very quickly. And B, he wants to do challenges. He understands, the appeal of going after things like double champions and going after things like Jon Jones. So that's not going to go away with this. So I guess it would be contingent upon if Jan continues to win and looks great, and if Izzy, defends that title a few more times and then says, okay, I'm going to go up to 205 permanently. I think that if I made changes, long term, and I instead of just jumping up and not adding any weight and just fighting at my natural weight, if I take some time to transform my body a little bit, then that narrative will be different, and it'll be a narrative that people can buy into, that, hey, this is Izzy now, not just fighting as a 205er, as a 185er. He's actually kind of moving up in weight. Then you could make that fight, but I think we're pretty still kind of far removed from that. I mean, I would think that there'd be more of a chance to see Jan and Jon Jones before we saw Jan and Izzy fight again.
And the Jon Jones thing, I guess that could happen if, for whatever reason, Jon Jones's heavyweight debut, doesn't really go as planned, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it just depends on. It looks like Jon is adding a lot of weight now. Jon has added weight before, in the off season, when in between fights, we've seen him balloon up. Sometimes
the OSP fight, which he didn't look great.
Sometimes it's been elder, right? Balloon up, and then other times it was kind of having a beer gut belly up. So he's done both, but then he's shown the ability to go back down to 205. So, but it does seem like he's kind of going through that transformation and thinking about heavyweight long term. So, but you're right. If he were to lose that heavyweight fight, the biggest fight for him would probably be to go back to 205, especially if Jan has defended the title once or twice by then. So yeah, I think there's a real possibility to see that fight.
It would be hard to see Jon Jones just kind of toiling at heavyweight if, for example, he lost the title fight and then, lost the subsequent fight to like a Ngannou. It's like, what do you do? Just become a middle of the range heavyweight? I think he'd rather come back down. But I agree with you also on Israel that he's beaten so many guys. If he continues to win, and that's a big if, then you got to think he's just going to go back up to 205 sooner than later. But when it comes to Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa, Marvin Vettori, and Darren Till, let's say Till and Whittaker both win. I know that Israel wants Till. Which one do you think the UFC would go with? Do you think they would just go with Till because that's what Israel wants and that's probably a fresh fight, a money fight? Or do you think there's any chance that Robert Whittaker slips in there just because, he's kind of quietly cleaning out the division of contenders, and he would be, if we're talking who's more deserving, it would definitely be Robert Whittaker.
Without question. And you just can't get around the fact that Rob just beat Darren Till last year. That's the one that you can't get around. You can create narratives about, this guy is the up and comer, or this guy just needed, Darren, I'm speaking of, this guy was coming up from welterweight, and now he's really set in middleweight, and his victory over Marvin Vettori in a main event, and he's calling out Israel, and Israel is responding to that. And all of that could get him the title shot, if not for the fact that the guy he is in direct competition with just beat him not that long ago. So I just don't see Darren Till jumping him in line. I definitely think it is possible. I mean, we've seen in this sport that just about anything is possible. The UFC does tend to like to go with the moneymaker, of course. But I just don't think you can get around the fact that Robert just beat Darren. So that as long as Robert beats Costa, which is such a tough fight. I mean, such a tough fight for a non-title championship when, you were on this run, you were champion, you defended the belt, you lost to one guy, and then you come back and beat, the two big guys who were kind of looked at as sort of, the next title contenders, knocked off both of them, and Till and Cannonier, to then have to go through Costa again just to get the title shot. I just don't think you could deny him at that point.
And what about the journey that he took to become the champion in the first place? He was fighting all the contenders as well while waiting to get a title shot. I'm just curious in regards to Israel's stock. He handled the loss in a really classy way, and people were just really kind of inspired by some of the stuff that he said, the dare to be great stuff, and just talking about the fact that, if he was going to lose to someone, he's happy to lose to a guy like Jan, a classy champion. And a funny turn of events, it feels like a lot of fans have even a little bit more respect for Israel than before this fight. It kind of feels like even though he lost, his stock didn't really take too much of a hit.
He was endearing in his loss.
He was absolutely endearing, and people like him a lot. In terms of the big selling fights, this hurts, and because not only did he not become a double champion, which obviously would have raised his stock and opened up a world of options and kept the Jon Jones fight on the radar, but now it takes him back to 185, which we just said. What's the big fight for him at 185? I mean, the reason he wants Darren Till, I think he's drawn to it stylistically for sure. I know he is. He said that on multiple occasions. But why else is he drawn to that fight? He's drawn to that fight because it's new and it's different and it's sellable. Darren Till is very popular. Israel knows both sides of this sport and entertainment, and he does both of them very well. So to go back to a middleweight division in which, his greatest challenge might be after what I just said, Robert Whittaker. He knocked him out already, and I personally am very interested in that fight. And I think it's nice that it's from a regional perspective. You still have the New Zealand, Australia thing, but it's not this giant blockbuster fight, and that's what Izzy was always working towards. Every fight of his, he was almost kind of on that Conor McGregor path when McGregor was running through and having all of these huge events and becoming a megastar, that every fight seemed bigger than the last one. And that's not going to be the case for him the next time he defends his title. So I don't think it hurt his stock in a way, but it does limit his options, if that makes sense. He's still the same guy. He's still a star, but what are his options? You can be a superstar in which it almost doesn't matter, but it always is helpful when you have the right dance partner. And right now, Izzy's list of dance partners is shorter, much shorter than it would have been if he won.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of times it's devastating when a guy loses the belt and then ends up kind of like a gatekeeper. Whereas in this case, Israel's still the champion. So like he didn't lose a whole lot, but like that whole touching the sky and Jon Jones at heavyweight, which would just be crazy. He doesn't have those options. I wonder how devastating you think losing that fight is, because I feel like every few years in the MMA world, we get this like giant super fight that people just chase after, almost a white whale, if you will. Like we never got GSP Anderson, we never got Fedor Brock Lesnar. Do you feel like this is kind of another one of those ones? And I'm not saying that we won't ever get it, but it just felt like I don't know, one that would transcend the sport, given both guys' history, their propensity for trash talk. I feel like this is going to be a mammoth fight. How devastating do you think it is that we may not get it?
Yeah, for all the reasons you just said, it's definitely devastating. I will say, and I don't want to be, for the record, when I came into 2021, they had me do a list of the top fights I want to see in 2021, and my number one was Israel versus Jon Jones, and it was for everything that you just said, because I think the buildup would have been amazing. I think if Israel was in a situation where he was a double champion, you can't write a script for kind of a bigger fight than that. I will admit, though, from a stylistic standpoint, I always thought that Jon was just too big for Izzy. I just thought that most likely he would take him down. And I think after watching the Jan fight, from a stylistic standpoint, like that part of my brain that was saying, like, how good is this fight really going to be? That was like very reinforced for me. So while I will mourn the loss of Jones and Adesanya right now currently for what it could have done from a commercial standpoint, as far as how intrigued I was at who was actually going to win that fight, and again, and not saying that Israel couldn't have beat Jon Jones. And actually, as I was watching the first few rounds of that fight with Jan, it was just like, man, he's defending those takedowns against the fence, and his striking is so good. But I don't know, if you line up some of those other fights that you mentioned, some of the super fights that maybe we never saw, from a competitive stylistic standpoint, this one was never one that like I personally as a fan had to see. I think it would have been a fun cover. I think it would have been a historic fight. But in terms of just what would have happened in the octagon, like there are a lot more matchups that intrigue me far more.
Diego Sanchez, Conor McGregor. What could have happened? We'll probably never know.
Top right there.
And looking at things positively, Brett, what is a fight sort of that could happen in 2021 that you'd be excited for? Is there sort of a dream matchup in any of the divisions with any of the champions that stand out to you now? Or is it with Khabib out of play, this Israel thing happening? Is it all pretty sort of low-key for the time being?
No, I hate to give this answer because I really do, because it's going to sound like I'm dismissive of Stipe Miocic, and I'm not. He is the greatest heavyweight of all time, and I don't think anyone's coming close to that anytime soon. But the one that stands out to me is Francis Ngannou and Jon Jones. If Francis Ngannou goes in and beats Stipe the way that he's been beating these other guys and knocks him out, and then you're talking about Francis, the scariest guy. I mean, you were talking about like marketing and this and that. The UFC marketing scary Francis Ngannou versus the GOAT and Jon Jones. I mean, that would be the narrative going into that fight. That's a super fight as well. And everyone is going to get on board with that, because Jon was not really, he wasn't selling like necessarily a superstar at light heavyweight, but that was, going back to the point of like, you kind of need a dance partner a little bit. And plus Jon, to be fair, some of his last performances have not been earth shattering. They've just been, a lot of people thought he lost to Dominic. Some people thought he lost to Thiago. Even if you thought he won those fights, they weren't like vintage Jon Jones where he was just mauling people. But people are still familiar with that name. He is still a household name. He's still recognized as probably the greatest of all time by most people, I think, especially here in the United States. And if you have that going against the scary Francis Ngannou, that's a huge super fight. And stylistically, quite frankly, that fight interests me more than Izzy and Jones ever did.
And I think also, like, for years when Jones talked about heavyweight, people thought that he would capitalize on maybe a smaller heavyweight or maybe a less dominant heavyweight, and where the size disparity wouldn't be as big. But Francis is the definition of a heavyweight. So seeing Jon Jones kind of really at the top of the mountain would be a crazy thing to see. I want to switch gears before we let you go, Brett. And obviously, while we're talking about titles and title contenders, Leon Edwards takes on Belal Muhammad this weekend in a very interesting fight for the division. A win here for Leon would obviously make it 9 in a row, which is already more than enough for a title shot. However, through no fault of his own, he hasn't fought in almost 2 years. And while Belal is tough, he doesn't really have many elite wins on his resume. I'm just wondering, with a win over here, in a main event, what do you think it gets Leon here? Do you think it locks in that next title shot, or do you think it's more of a kind of reminder to the fans that, hey, I'm still here, I'm still at the top of the division?
I think it probably gets him the Colby Covington fight, which in one sense
could have happened already.
That's the thing. That's what's weird about it. And I even asked Leon that when I saw him last week, as I was like, it kind of seems like Colby just doesn't have interest in fighting you, and not this time, not before, and I don't want to put Colby on blast. I don't know what his situation is, but he told you guys that he's not doing Leon any favors. He's not taking that fight. So for him to turn down that fight, and then for Leon to say, okay, well, I'm willing to fight literally anyone. I'm fighting. I just want to fight. I want to get back into competition. I want to remind people about how good I am. For him to take the risk of fighting Belal, who is not a top-ranked guy, but is very, very, very talented, and fight at number 13. If he gets by him, then what? He just gets what he was trying to get anyway with Colby after Colby turned him down. I mean, that doesn't really seem fair to Leon, but it hasn't been fair 2 years for Leon. It hasn't been a fair 3 years for Leon. It was interesting. I was talking to his manager, Tim Simpson, and he said, it's crazy to think that he's been out for 20 months and he wasn't injured during all that time. When we think about people who have been gone from the sport for 20 months, we're always talking about a torn ACL or a retirement or some type of injury. He just had super bad luck. I mean, during that time, there were several matchups made for him. There was a potential title fight at Fight Island. There was all these circumstances that just he could not take, or that fell through for reasons that were really not his fault. So it is crazy that he's coming back after all this time to a fight against Belal Muhammad, which again is not to not discredit anything Belal has done, but Leon deserves more than that. And so it's unfortunately, I think what this fight is for Leon is him showcasing the improvements he's made over the last 2 years, which his team believes are very, very significant. They say that, because he wasn't injured during that time, he actually has been working on his game for the last 20 months. And we forget that this guy's still only 29 years old. So they're saying that you're going to see the best version of Leon that you've ever seen. And if he makes a statement against Belal, I think we're going to be talking about him. I think he's going to have a little bit of an easier time getting these fights, but it's still the fight that he's been asking for basically 2 years. And I think that would be the Colby Covington fight.
Yeah, so much on the line for Leon. Imagine if he loses. And Belal, of course, stepping in. A lot of respect for him. So you still believe that it will be Masvidal versus Usman for the title? He was saying something about September in that interview about the boxing. Do you still believe that's the move?
I do. Yeah. I don't know exactly when the fight will happen or what circumstances it will be, but I say this, and they already did move that past this matchup once, and then it ended up still happening on 6 days notice because Gilbert Burns got COVID. But the UFC did move on from this Kamaru Jorge fight once last year. So it's not like they won't do it again, but I just think with the champ calling for it and, being able to sell it again on the idea that Masvidal came in on 6 days notice, I just think that it's so good for all parties involved that a deal will come through. And I think that'll be the fight.
Wow, there you go. Speaking of deals, what's the deal with your downstairs section? Make sure your bush is nicely trimmed ahead of St. Patrick's Day. Remember, St. Patrick's Day is for pubs, not for pubes, and our good friends at Manscaped have the best grooming tool on the market and are helping you keep your balls smooth, making sure they constantly get licked. With the 7,000 RPM motor, the LED light, and the waterproof features and skin-safe technology, it's a hell of a device, isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. Gain some speed with your Manscaped Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer. But also, what about the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer? And what about the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, the Crop Reviver ball toner? There's all sorts of things at Manscaped. So if you've already got something, don't think you've got it all, because there's still a lot more to go. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code submission at manscaped.com. And also, every purchase at manscaped.com goes towards contributions made to the Testicular Cancer Society to bring awareness to testicular cancer, men's health, and early cancer detection. So make sure to support a brand that supports an important cause, and also presents Submission Radio, because we are presented by Manscaped. They've been absolutely great to us. Support Submission Radio yourself with Manscaped today. And also, Cass, while we're talking about people doing great things, MMA History Today, what about these guys? Absolutely killing it on social media. You guys can follow them at MMA History Today on Twitter or Instagram. They capture all of the great moments, all the things that we've loved from MMA history, all the times when we were fans before we got into this game. Like, oh yeah, I remember when this happened. This was an awesome moment. And they were kind enough to send us their new poster. They do a great range. It's called The Art of Fighting, and they sent us the latest poster, The Art of Fighting 15, The Elite. This thing is amazing. Make sure to go to MMAHistoryToday.com and check out all the posters. So many great ones, Cass. What about the Record Breaker, which was poster 13? Boy, Masvidal knocking out Ben Askren. A lot of great ones there. Jump on the website, check them out, and make sure to give them a follow.
Yeah, they're not sponsors of the show. They're just friends of the show, and they're really, really good guys, always sending through those posters. So a lot of love to them. Speaking of love, though, how about Belal Muhammad, man? If he can go in there and pull off the upset. Shades of Marvin Vettori capitalizing and going in there on short notice against Jack Hermansson and just skyrocketing himself to the top of the division, a brand new contender. As we let you go, Brett, what's your prediction for this fight? How do you see this one playing out? Do you think Belal can pull the upset, or do you think we're going to see this new Leon Edwards 2.0, so to speak, with all his improvements while he's been away?
I think Belal can definitely pull an upset, just because I think he is good. He's battle tested. I mean, he hasn't fought a top 5 guy, but we've seen him with enough talented guys that it's not like we really don't know what we have with Belal Muhammad. We just probably haven't seen his ceiling, and if we see it in this fight, and we're going to have to see it for him to win this one, then we'll truly know how good the guy is. Leon is coming off of a long layoff. His team is talking it up like that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not. It can be a very bad thing. And Belal just fought a month ago, so he's got a little bit of momentum. He seems in a very, very good headspace. I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with, maybe it's just his team's got me fired up, but what they're saying about Leon is that, because he went through all these camps, he went through a full camp for Tyron Woodley, he went through 2 full camps for Khamzat Chimaev, and now he sort of dropped this. He did have a lot of pressure on himself and some frustration about what was happening, what was not happening in his career, and it got to the point where it got so frustrating that he's basically kind of let that go, and he's like, I'm just going to be active, I'm going to compete. This is a privilege to just get in here in the first place, so I'm just going to treat it as such, and I'm not going to try and look too far ahead. He seems like in a good mental space as well. So I think this could be a breakout for Leon, and it could be a really big reminder of how good he is. And And if he does look that good, and he's never been great on the mic, but if he just can put together a halfway decent call out of Colby Covington, I think he's going to be on his way.
Well, he is the face that runs the place. Make sure to follow Brett on social media at Okamoto ESPN. Of course, a lot of thirst trap posts on Instagram for all the fans out there, and of course, breaking news. And you also break down, commentate, and report MMA. Is that right, Brett, or is it just
yeah? I dabble.
He dabbles a little bit. Of course, he is facing all the ESPN broadcast and amazing work from the man. We appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule, Brett. And let us know when that OnlyFans account starts up, and maybe with a percentage, we can retire and stop doing the show.
As much as you text me asking me to start it, man, I'm getting closer and closer with each one.
Thank you so much, Brett Okamoto, everybody.